Down said hut. It's a football podcast with Cody and Sam.
Hello, and welcome to the inaugural 2021 Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm here with Sam and Cody, reigning champ and Dust Reborn. Boys, how's it going?
Good. It's good to be back. It's been, 3 or 4 months since our last podcast, so looking forward to getting into the season again.
Yeah, I think isn't this our first podcast since Sam won the title, at least? So I don't like seeing that he's here with a trophy, but Sam, did you even bring the trophy down with you?
No, I should have.
God, you don't even respect it. You don't deserve it. You just don't deserve
it. It's
it.
mounted on my wall now, Cody, so everyone can see it.
I mounted it first. Just remember that.
So how do you have it oriented? Is it like mounted vertically or horizontally like this? It's just like stapled to the wall?
No, I just got I put a board in my wall and just put it on top.
Did you really do that?
Not yet, but I want to. I want to put it right in the middle of my living room with the 20-foot ceiling and put it halfway up the wall.
Smart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just take a bunch of pictures of it and literally post the pictures everywhere on all of your walls and just say, this is our artwork. Take a look at it.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, I'm inventive.
Well, on that note, let's talk about 2021. I'll start off with Sam. What are you most looking forward to with the 2021 season?
Well, just everything about football is going to be awesome. But what I'm looking forward to watching the most is all of these young rookie quarterbacks getting in there. I think we have 5 big ones this year. And it seems like they've made pretty good progress during the preseason. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see who hits and who misses.
Cody, what do you think?
I'm going to take a step kind of outside of football itself a little bit. I'm excited to hear the crowd again, just actually in the stadiums and every single stadium and seeing the kind of advantage it brings back to defenses. I feel like we kind of missed out on that last year. And it was kind of a bummer to watch the Vikings play at home and you wouldn't even hear it. Well, you'd hear the stupid fake noise and it was just not the same. So I'm ready to hear the energy again.
I think I'm most looking forward to the 17th game. Remove a preseason, add in, everyone's going to break records. So many more quarterbacks are going to hit the 5,000 yard mark. I feel like Stafford's going to do it again now this year. I could see Joe Burrow doing it this year. I don't know. It's going to be kind of cool.
Yeah, I feel like to even be in the MVP race, you kind of have to hit 5,000 now. It's a new standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, without further ado, we decided that today was a good day to go over the draft that we never actually went over. And normally we do it pretty quickly after the draft actually occurs, but we've had some time to let things settle. Final roster cuts were made. So it's kind of a fun time to go over it actually and see a little bit more insight into what was good, what was bad. So right away, let's look at the first round. So we've got the draft up on the screen here. What jumps out to you guys as a first round steal or even bust?
I can go first, I guess, because Cody had about half the first round. I hate to say it. I know, Cody, you were there at my place, I think, when you drafted him, but I am a huge Devonta Smith believer. I think you getting him at 111 is going to be the steal of the draft. No one has ever played college football wide receiver like he has, and I think that's going to translate really well to the NFL.
I have to agree. Man, he's just especially for that team, he vaults, pretty much jumps into being, if not already, could become their number one wide receiver, really quickly. So, yeah, and to your point, we haven't really seen anything like it. His size was his biggest concern, but I don't think it matters when you have the ball skills that he does.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at it for what I would consider to be the bust setting right now, potentially could be Travis Etienne. And I get that that's 2020 hindsight now with injury news, but even
fine.
back then, I think that was a little bit high for him. I thought I saw him more going towards like 7 or 8. Um, just because like I didn't actually have him that far in front of Javonte Williams for Denver. I like the situation a little bit better, honestly, in Denver for Javonte Williams personally. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
I thought it was fine. I obviously liked Javonte Williams too, but I think Etienne with being the dual threat capability in that offense, especially when early on, when you imagined Etienne there with Trevor Lawrence and you imagine just the PPR value, I was a big fan. So
Yeah, I agree with Tom. I'm still a pretty big fan of him. I think the talent's there. The dual threat is pretty huge, and I think he'll be on a good team going forward.
if you make the argument that Barber isn't competing, then he almost takes 0 hit. But if he were competing, then yeah, I think my valuation would have to naturally change.
Right. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the running backs play out, especially with Najee Harris looking like he has that pretty wrapped up. I think that was a good pick. Javonte Williams, I think he'll be fine. So this could be like a first round where all the running backs honestly turn out okay.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how they play when they actually hit the field.
I think one of the best picks, just from what I'm seeing from training camp, is obviously Zach Wilson, because there's some people that are super high on him from what he's done in the preseason, what he's done in camp. There's another quarterback that we'll get to in the second round, but I think Wilson could sneakily have gone. We'll see what he does, but you could make your argument that he could have gone like ahead of Fields in some like different order. I still really love Lance. Like I in another world, I might have gone like Lawrence, Lance, Wilson, Fields. But we don't know much about Fields yet. He's looked good in preseason too, but Wilson has the job on day one, which is nice value.
Yeah, and obviously the Jets put a lot of draft capital into him too, and you can't just take someone with the second overall pick and not invest at least a couple of years into them.
And take it as you want to, but like Chris Sims, who's historically been like the best at predicting QBs the last like 5 years, actually has Zach Wilson the number one, even over Lawrence on his board right now.
I'll take that bet.
he just has it for the way that he's seen him work in preseason, controlling an actual NFL tempoed offense has been jumping out to him. It may not even be the career, but maybe he's saying who's most ready for the NFL right now is Zach Wilson, which I wouldn't have thought that coming out of the draft.
Well, that's funny you say that because coming out of the draft, that was his biggest concern, was that he
Yeah.
wasn't NFL ready. So, but it's no different than Justin Herbert last year. I think a lot of people had concerns with that exact topic, and then look what he did, and now people are already saying like MVP candidate question mark. So it's like,
Yeah. I really didn't want Zach Wilson. I mean, I talked to you guys both about that. I really didn't like him, but he just dropped, and I was like, I can't not take him with the 7th pick.
oh
That's
yeah,
just way too good a value.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good starter for your team. I mean, is he going to be top 10? Probably not. Top 15? Probably not. But like, he's got okay weapons around him now, and I think he's a pretty good player. So I think he'll be good for you for a while.
Anyone else in the first round that changed since the draft, or that you didn't agree with at the draft time, or worth noting?
Bateman's definitely dropped with the injuries, but I still think long term he'll be good.
I agree. I was thinking making a comment on him too, but I just don't see a world where he doesn't become their wide receiver one.
I agree.
So nothing changes for me there. If anything, like I kind of like him a little bit more than Waddle.
Yeah, I actually think going off of that, Waddle is actually the one person I actually think falls. I'm still I'm not a Tua believer, so that doesn't help. But I know they're going to get Waddle involved. I just don't know to what extent that he's going to be super productive in that offense. But that's just my own opinion.
Well, yeah, because they've got Gesicki, Fuller, and Parker.
Well,
other than
Fuller's going to
Waddle.
be suspended, or he's out for the season. One of the two.
No, it's not for the season. I think he's supposed to be back pretty soon, right?
He's supposed to be suspended for like half the year, I thought.
Oh, is it that?
I thought it was a few weeks. I'll look it up.
Oh, really?
I thought it was
Okay.
8 games after week 11 last year. So like
Okay.
I think it's only the first 3 games or something like that. My God, do not quote me, but
It's actually only 1 week.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
never mind then.
Week 1 is the only week he's out for suspension.
So it's not even a factor then.
Maybe I got excited.
I mean, to me, Waddle has a similar profile to Fuller. So like, again, I'm not saying he has no value, but it kind of just vaults Bateman ahead in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, let's talk about round 2. I guess I'll just start by saying what we're all thinking, that Mac Jones' value, like, I think he would have very clearly been round 1 material if we would have known that he was going to overtake the first QB role in New England. And not only would he have taken it over, but also the Patriots releasing Newton. So it just takes away any possibility of him not being QB1. Like, where does he go, in your guys' opinion, if we knew what we know now?
In this draft, I would have taken him probably after Pitts. I maybe still would have taken Devonta Smith, but so probably like 9 or 10. So it was like 4 spots for me at least.
No, exactly the same here. I was going to say 110. I think that's like a perfect spot for him.
Yeah, it's tricky for me because now this goes back into our QB rankings. I almost would have taken, knowing what I know now, God, I know this sounds such a hot take, but I might have taken Fields as the 5th quarterback, just because, like, and I would have put Jones 4 in this order here, and that's crazy, but it just maybe makes me realize even more looking back at round 1, thinking about Jones, that maybe Fields is like my biggest bust from round 1. I don't know.
I think where I'd be looking at right now, and I get that it's early, but I actually agree with you. Fields, to me, I feel like he's had a couple really big highlight plays, but then there's been other times I watched him and he just did not look comfortable at all. And I get it, he's a rookie. You can't judge all that right away here. But watching Mac Jones play and the throws he was making, the accuracy he had, it actually, and knowing the fact that they actually have a solid offensive line, that they don't need to worry about that. To me, he actually looked kind of like Tom Brady, like on that field. The way that he was just like, he's not athletic, he's not going to outrun you, he's not going to do any of that, but he's just going to like pick you apart. So
You
I
heard it
don't
here
think it's that
first.
hard of a take.
Mac Jones is Tom Brady.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Yeah, if he can be 50% of Tom Brady, I'll be so happy.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
where. I was just going to quickly interject. That's where you guys are saying 110. I honestly, if I drop Fields and I drop Pitts, and I might even take him ahead of Smith, it's like push to me. I would even argue I would have taken him 107 now if I would have known what I known. I would not. I guess I'll put it this way. I wouldn't have taken Javonte Williams if I would have known what I know now. I would have taken Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. I'd still take Fields over him personally. I'd prefer rookie quarterbacks not to start right away. Just seems like it's a better method, but he certainly looked the part this year so far.
Yeah. I agree with you, Sam, there in that sense, but I think to me it's only really successful. Like Trey Lance would be the one I think it's going to be really successful with, which is where you take the whole year off. I think there's no way before the end of the season Justin Fields isn't starting. Like to me, and to me by that time, like even just like a half a season doesn't really work for your taking a break type thing, at least in my opinion. But whereas like taking a full season and going through training camp again and going through preseason again is where you really get that benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think a full season is preferable, but like the top players never get that. Like, I'll bet you any amount of money you want that Lance starts before the end of the year. Like, there's no way that Jimmy G ends the year their starting quarterback. I mean, there was reports coming out last week that there was a chance he started week 1, which I don't think will happen, but like he's going to start at some point.
Well, let's also consider that they're already planning on working him into a Taysom Hill type role. Like in the preseason, they were already showing flashes of that, where they bring him in a couple times a drive, basically playing not wildcat. What do you call that? Even formation? You have the quarterback like just an option role, I guess.
Sure.
So where am I going with that? Yeah, I guess. I'm going with that is that similar to what's happening with fantasy baseball, where young players are just exploding onto the scene so early because of sabermetrics and Statcast being available in the minors. I think we're seeing a very similar effect in football, and I think that college repertoire, or I guess college schemes, are matching the NFL more closely. And so I don't know if I even buy into the 1 year wait anymore. I think that in recent memory, everyone remembers Aaron Rodgers' success and remembers to some extent Tom Brady, but
Pat Mahomes.
Patrick
and Pat
Mahomes.
Mahomes is the big one. But I don't think it's a necessary. I don't even think it's like I don't even know if there's a correlation. I think we've seen just as many quarterbacks that have started hot in recent memory, like Kyler Murray and what's his name, Justin Herbert. Like
Yeah.
I think that there's just zero correlation. If they're ready, they're ready. Is kind of where I'm at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just about knowing if they're ready or not, though, which is the hard part. And like if you put them in when they're not ready, like Tua, I think it just crushes their confidence and they're worse going forward.
So then I would argue that's a good point, because then the bigger factor to me would be coaching. It has nothing to do with whether you sit or don't sit. It's about who you have on your offensive coordinator side and your head coach side and the personnel around you that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I just think it's easier for them to be ready after a longer period of time too. Like there certainly are the top tier players that can start right away, but I feel like most players coming out of college just aren't ready for it.
Right. To me, it's more like you can't really ruin a guy from sitting him an extra year and taking everything in. You can only ruin a guy by starting him right away and crushing his confidence.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Well, let's talk about someone else other than just Mac Jones, because there's like a whole other second round that's actually pretty interesting. This was a fun round when I was part of it. Anyone else that jumps out to you guys in this round?
Yeah, to me, Trey Sermon is my pick that I really liked here. A lot of these receivers do have high ceilings, but I just think that if Trey Sermon does win that job on debatably the best rushing team in the league, he will be like a top tier player, and getting that chance in the mid-second is awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the injuries are going to help too. Whether he gets there or not, I'm not for sure on. And there's some, yeah, we'll see. I think he could be a good goal line back. He might even turn into that, which definitely has value for them, just given his size. Looking just kind of odd here, I think kind of one person I think is like, I guess he hasn't really fallen off, but I'm interested to see is Josh Palmer for the Chargers, just being in like that crowded wide receiver core. And like there's going to be so many targets to go around and mouths to feed that I'm interested to see if he can sustain anything in that offense. So that's kind of my pick for who I'm interested to watch. I saw that I think he came out as the number 3 wide receiver, which is like good on him to earn that and beat out other guys like that. But I want to see how he gets along with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, to your point with being crowded, that to me he drops quite a bit. The pick I am interested in, well, okay, elephant in the room here. Elijah Moore is like the sleeper favorite receiver for everyone, which
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like I still like Mims quite a bit, and like Jamison Crowder sucks. So like any young receiver that shows anything could really show value, especially with Zach Wilson. Like who knows who Zach Wilson favors? Kind of a start of a new era there, but
I think it'll be Corey Davis.
I think it'll be Corey
honestly.
Davis.
yeah, I think Corey Davis is the receiver to own there long term. But I wanted to talk about Rondale Moore too. I think he really fits what they're looking for, and obviously the addition of AJ Green. I'm not sure what to expect of AJ Green at all, because he looked like he was retired last year. So I don't know. This is like so cool to see. This happened a couple years ago in our draft, or maybe even was last year, where there's just a ton of wide receivers that are going to start moving around within like the first 2 weeks. We're going to already have completely different opinions.
Yeah. We're gonna see like which ones are like the hits and which ones are definitely the misses. Like I feel like early on, Rondale Moore is super interesting how they use him. He's just a gadget player. Like they're gonna do so many sweeps with him around the outside and so many short plays and screens with him and use him just such like a gadget. But he does have that explosiveness that maybe he takes over Christian Kirk's spot. There's been debates about that going forward, depending on how they all work. But it again, to go back on that though, there is like the Chargers issue with there's so many mouths to feed. So it's like I like the gadget players. I think he's going to be a big boomer bust player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just don't think he has that ceiling there just with Kyler. And like he's never going to overtake DeAndre Hopkins, who in my opinion is like the most talented receiver in the league. And then you have Kyler, who rushes for like 10 touchdowns a year. I just don't think there is enough to go around in that offense to make him like ever really a legitimate starter, especially this year with AJ Green. But I mean, that being said, maybe he reaches like high wide receiver 3 if he hits, but I just don't think he'll ever be like a wide receiver 1.
Because they still have Kirk too, yeah. So, the last person, of course, that always jumps out to me is Amon-Ra St. Brown, which at the time of that pick I was pretty wary, but considering that he had a great training camp and that they have no one, and they even got rid of Rashad Perriman, the Lions, that is, he could be wide receiver 1 on that team. Like Tyrell Williams is probably wide receiver 1 starting the first couple games of the season. But you're looking at a situation where Amon-Ra St. Brown becomes wide receiver 1, and then he's wide receiver 1 for like long term, like he's the new Kenny Galladay. So I actually, in hindsight, that might be the strongest wide receiver pick in the round.
I totally agree with that. I think people are sleeping on that offense this year because they don't have any wide receivers, but I don't think Goff is bad. He's worse than Stafford, but if he can actually differentiate himself, he could be really good.
Yeah, I am interested to see who does take the leap because the big competition for like him number 1 wide receivers is like Quintez Cephas' second year now, and like he's big, physical from Wisconsin, like or was from Wisconsin. So it's like if he can take the step forward, it might even be him. And then St. Brown is also like a complimentary thing. So it's going to be interesting to see them compete honestly against each other this year.
Yeah, that's why I think it'll be, I don't know, like Amon-Ra St. Brown's, or the Sun God, as we all call him now in Detroit land, is more like his ceiling is just so much higher. So I'd much rather have him than any other receiver in Dynasty. Anyone else you guys want to chat about in round 2? How about Nico Collins? The comp pick.
I don't know what to say. I don't even think it was that bad of a pick. It's just like I don't really know what to say about that offense anymore.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. I think after Elijah Moore in this round, it's a pretty big drop off to everyone else in the draft.
Yep.
What about Kellen Mond?
I mean, we have Kirk. He's never going to overtake Kirk while he's here, but maybe long term.
He looks kind of ass in preseason too.
Yeah,
from what I
he
saw.
didn't look very good. But we'll see, I guess.
I think that's a bit of a reach.
I mean, he was a third round pick, wasn't he? In like the NFL draft.
Yep.
It's like
to me, he was supposed to be taken right where Mills and Trask were taken. So.
Yeah, and it's like I honestly don't. I'm not going to bet on any of those guys to start even like one season. So
I will say where he was taken, I feel like I look kind of along the rest of the list though, and it kind of really nothing really excites me. So like Kellen Mond, the difference between Trask and Mills is that he can run and he's athletic. Is that he does have the way higher ceiling than either one of those other guys. So that way, if you're going to take the kind of the late second round pick, I'd love to take the guys with the high ceilings. So Kellen Mond makes sense to me personally.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Sure. Okay, so let's jump into the 3rd and 4th round combined, since there's probably not much to grab from here, but anyone that jumps out to you guys from those rounds?
I mean, I would have never said this during the draft, so I'm not going to even pretend like it. But Ramondre Stevenson has really blown up over the last month or two in preseason. So to me, he's probably the pick I would look to have gained value.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was gonna say. I'm actually gonna go a different route. I'm gonna list two players here that really jump out to me. Number one, Chuba Hubbard had a great preseason. He looks like he's a solidified back behind McCaffrey. If McCaffrey ever goes down, I think he catapults into being a top 20 running back, in my
When
opinion.
McCaffrey goes down.
Yes, Dust Reborn. Um, I think he's a riser for me personally. I think the other one who I actually really like is Kyle Trask. He looked decent in the preseason as well, and I think just being able to take a year under Tom Brady is just something I was always interested in about him. Um, and that's also comparing it to the rest of the guys I'm seeing here, which nobody really excites me that much. But Kyle Trask has the potential to excite me.
You guys picked everyone I I don't really have much interest in Gainwell. Neither of the tight ends are anything. And then yeah, I mean like Chuba Hubbard or Chuba, I don't even know. Is it Chuba or Chuba? I don't even know.
Chuba, I think.
I think it's
Okay.
Chuba.
Chubby.
I like him a lot because I honestly still am on the CMC as dust train. And I think that Chuba Hubbard's super talented and went to a situation where if McCaffrey does go down, like he's RB1 and could finish as like rest of season based on when McCaffrey's injured, he could be like a top 20 running back, even maybe even higher. So the only other interesting position, of course, it's always interesting to evaluate quarterbacks, and I do think that Davis Mills, being in the situation he is, could start this year. So that's always interesting.
You know who? Sorry, just looking at it. When this happened, you know who seems like they lost a lot of value? Whoever that Fitzpatrick guy is as a wide receiver on Tennessee. Just like with the Julio Jones trade, that seems like a real bummer. Looking at that one, because like,
I don't
oh,
even
Corey
know
Davis.
if he made the roster.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Agreed.
Yeah, that one's tough. With just to go back to Chuba Hubbard really quick, do you guys think CMC is probably getting injured at some point, but while he's actually playing, do you think Hubbard takes a role out of that? Like, does he get like 20% of the snaps, or do you think it's just completely CMC until he goes down?
I'm really interested to see, in fact, because I'm wondering if the Panthers are also realizing that CMC is dust and they're going to start taking away from his workload. And if that is the case, then, which I think would be the smart thing, if I was the team manager, especially because they do have a quarterback situation now, that isn't Bridgewater, right? Or am I just completely crazy?
It's Darnold.
Darnold.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd say
I
it's
just
an
want to make sure I
upgrade
wasn't
personally.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I wasn't misremembering. I think that you do start to put in, I would like to see a 70-30 split if I was managing that team.
Yeah, make Hubbard like a third down back or something like that. Or maybe
Or even
just like,
first down.
yeah, actually, probably I was gonna say more first down with him, just because of the versatility of McCaffrey as a pass catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm always surprised with McCaffrey the amount of goal line carries he gets. That's where I think he would like, if you wanted to do a split, that's where they would do it at. Just because that's also just seems to be the general trend. Not that he's bad on the goal line, just that he just isn't size wise. He's just not huge. It seems like he
Or
takes a beating.
or even just like drive based. Like McCaffrey takes off half of a drive, or more split back formations. Like it doesn't have to be like the third down roll or the first down or whatever. It can just be like more strategic. And I don't know. I have to think that because of how much they use McCaffrey, that played into his injuries. So
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sam, as a CMC owner, what would you like? Would you rather them have move in Hubbard a little bit and hope for the longevity for McCaffrey, or do you just want kind of the firecracker where it's just like just play him as much as he can as long as he can?
I mean, selfishly, I want him to be on the field every single play of the game, and then if he goes down, he goes down. But if I were the Panthers, I would want to like play him like 70 or 80% of the time and still get the utilization, but try to protect him a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other thoughts from the draft? Period. Who wins the draft? Is it Cody because he had the most? Or is
Yeah.
there someone else that sneakily took it?
Probably Cody. Laramie had a good draft too, in my opinion, but Cody's had too many picks that some of them have to hit.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to think. Yeah. I mean, Laramie had an okay draft, I guess. Just with getting obviously Harris and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like is
And
that what your
Chubba
point is?
Hubbard
And Chaba, yeah. I guess if we're both talking about him, yeah.
and Pat Fryermuth, depending on your feelings about him.
I don't. Ugh. He was a prospect, and they already have Eric Ebron. I didn't get that pick from Pittsburgh when they took it, so
Sure.
yeah, there isn't really a standout winner because of just how much Cody took over from the draft, but also, I don't know, is there a loser even?
I mean, so we were talking about this during the draft too, but you could actually say Cody was a loser too, just because of how many running backs went early, like how many of the top running backs. So he really didn't get many, even though that was his greatest need. But he made a couple of trades too, so shored that up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I guess that wraps up our draft segment. I thought that was pretty fun. Oh shoot! Now I got to log into Fantasy Pros. All right. Well, I'm doing that because unless Cody can share and we just lose Cody.
You can try it.
Okay. I might try to log into Fantasy Pros too on the side.
Cody, while he's doing that, you have Dobbins, right?
Yeah.
With that injury and not really having any depth at running back, because it's basically just Saquon and then is it Michael Carter is your number two?
No, it's Damien Harris.
Oh yeah, Damien Harris. Are you like going to try to make playoffs this year, or is your goal just to like get another good draft pick, basically?
No, it's just like it's not even really about draft pick. It's just like it's more of a waiting and holding game for me personally. It's just like I know I'll get Dobbins back next year, and then like we'll see where things go, see where pieces fall. But I'm more focused on probably the year after. But at the same time, with this team, it's like I'll still manage it. Where like if I make playoffs, cool. I mean, I don't have my first round pick, so I don't really care either way.
Oh sure.
I
But
traded
I
it to
guess I
Mike.
guess Mike has it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter to me.
It's funny you say that because I actually do think that Dobbins going down is maybe the difference between you wanting to actually try to make a run for it or not. But your team is still solid, obviously. So
Yeah, I think even with Dobbins, it's still a little bit too early to try to really go for it, in my opinion, because like you still have Sam and Trujillo are just so much clearly better. I'd say Tom, you're clearly better than me. Um, Marcus and Mags is who I could hope to be kind of close to, and that's like 4 and 5. So to me, it's like even with a healthy Dobbins, I don't think I was there yet. Just given that I think it'll take time for some of my players to develop and kind of hit their ceilings. Um, Especially I don't know. So like to me, it's more like a 2 or 3 year out type thing.
mm-hmm. um well, you got your power rankings up, and so normally we try to come up with our own power rankings, but Cody had the idea to look at Fantasy Pros, and I know Matt Maggs is a big fan of the Fantasy Pros. He always looks at it before the season to see how it shakes out. So we thought we would use this as a starting point and see if we agree at all or disagree at all with Fanny Pro.
Fanny Pros.
We're all part of the Fanny Pros.
Yep.
But let's start with Sam at 101, or the number one, I should say. Any doubters of Sam's number one prowess?
Only number 5 on your wide receivers, Sam? What are you doing?
My receivers are not very good anymore. DeAndre
Yeah,
Hopkins
Thomas
is
going
still
down.
awesome. Yeah, Thomas going down. Who knows about Julio? Like I'm still a fan of Woods, and I think my receivers are still fine for a win now, but like they're not what they were even 1 year ago.
Hmm. When
It's
do you
funny.
think? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was just gonna say it's funny you say that because if I'm kind of like joining Trujillo here in this coalition to try to beat Sam, I think that we're happy with what's happened to your receiver core because it becomes this gate that now has a little bit of a breach into it where what if Kamara is no longer good without Breeze, and then like what if CMC actually is dust, and then like and I know you have some backups on your team, like you
Like
still have Derrick
Dalvin
Henry
Cook and Dalvin Cook.
and Dalvin Cook. Well, but I think he's a starter most weeks, but I don't know. The, having one weakness gives us a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest weakness is injuries, and I think a lot of my players are very injury prone. So could easily see Julio going down MT as Antonio Brown 2.0. So I think his brain is just going to dust. And then the running backs get so much usage, they could all go down too.
I think kind of some of the make or break players, honestly, if I have to just think about it, I would say it's not really the running backs necessarily. It is more like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I think if those two like happen to go down, that's where the ground can be caught up, in my opinion.
You mean like injury wise?
Yeah, like injury,
Oh.
they go down. Not actually go down. If they're healthy, they're going to be great. But like
Yeah.
Kelsey is a huge lift for your team, in my opinion, as a tight end, clear tight end number one. And then it's like if he goes away, that brings up opportunities for other teams to kind of slide in there. Like especially thinking of Trujillo's team with Kittle now. Um, and then obviously Patrick Mahomes being the number one quarterback, if he goes down, you drop to Russell Wilson, I think, which is still a good quarterback, but then it has an adverse effect on the super flex at league also.
Yeah, because it's just Wilson goes to QB1 and then Tagovailoa goes into TB2.
Funny you say, because I probably wouldn't even start Tua. I think I would just start my fourth running back. But
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, yeah.
But it would still be a big hit, certainly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the dominance isn't as high as last year.
I said it before last year too, is that I think I have 2 to 3 years total, counting last year. So like after this year, I could easily see one or two of my running backs just completely being dust. I would be pretty shocked if after 2022 my team is like top 2 or 3 even. So still the favorite this year in my opinion, but it'll go downhill quick.
I know this is a lot to ask of you, Cody, because you're not the best multitasker. Just kidding. But can you actually put it on the power rankings and teams side by side? Like make 2 different tabs. Yeah, you the man. You the man.
Hold on.
Oh, never mind. You're almost the man. You're getting there.
Normally it would help. I don't have it on the right screen right now, or else I could do this really easily.
Just drag it to the edge.
Yeah, but I already have it on extend mode, and this is my middle monitor, so it doesn't do that. Because I just drag it to the next monitor. So
okay. I think you can still drag it to the edge, and then it will give you the option. Unless that's a setting thing.
There you go.
Cool.
You want to look at Sam's team?
Not anymore. I was just thinking more for
Not anymore.
forward thinking.
Ooh, you guys, I got a trade. Should we look at trades live?
Bet you from Fowler.
Sure. Go for it. Let's see it.
Too.
Hashtag live trades.
Holy cow. Kenny Galladay for 3 seconds?
Did you just decline it?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was more thinking forward thinking it'd be nice to look at the team side by side because now we're moving into the next tier, which let's trust Fantasy Pros and see if we agree with it. Fantasy Pros clearly draws a tier line at the next tier 2 being me and Trujillo. Do we agree with that being the same tier, and do we agree that it's 2 and like in that order?
To me, Trujillo is, if we're talking total points at the end of the season, I would agree that he's probably second. Personally, I have Adam at third. And actually, based on our league settings and our divisions, I have Adam at number 2 overall.
Ooh. Whoa, that's a hot take.
So does that mean you think Adam will finish the second best team?
I think seeding wise, he'll either finish as the 1 or number 2 seed. Like, I think he has a very, very strong chance of finishing at the number 1 seed this year. Like, to the point where, you know how we play everyone exactly once this year other than our division mates? If he
Yep.
beats me in our one-on-one matchup, I would heavily bet he is the number 1 seed at the end of the year.
Whoa. Well, that's a hot take.
I just think his team is really good, and his division is like the worst by far. Like, he should at minimum go 5-1 in division, probably 6-0.
So before even talking about what Fantasy Pro says 2 and 3, let's just jump. Let's humor Sam. Let's jump to looking at Adam's team and talking about that then, and let's
Sure.
see, and then we can kind of say, all right, we're using Adam as the litmus test.
Yeah, and so to start it off too on this justification, if you look at Fantasy Pros rankings, they have Adam's 3 division mates as the bottom 3, which I actually do agree with. So that's kind of the starting. But then yeah, you look at his team, like Kyler Murray, top tier quarterback, right? Just awesome. I'm a big fan of both of his running backs. I think he probably has the best receivers in the league, if not very, very close. His tight end is certainly his one weakness. And then his QB2 is awesome as well. So, like, in my opinion, he has one weakness and everything else is just solid.
The biggest thing with Adam's team, actually, don't get me wrong, because I've told Adam this several times, that I think he's done a great job with roster construction, because I also love his team. But he has zero depth. If you scroll down to his bench, that's something I've always said, looking down at it. And then if you think about his starters again, there's like, I don't know, not that I want to say this, but like DeAndre Swift already injured to start the season. Not that I don't want to assume that's going to carry into the season, but it certainly could. And then I do think Godwin's arrow is pointing down relative to what it used to be at, especially because Antonio Brown is really a big part of the mix. And like a lot of people are saying he's their new wide receiver 1, which is crazy to think, but I don't know. You might be shrugging your shoulders at that one, but and then obviously like Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know what to think about him this year. Obviously his year last year was atrocious. Then you got Prescott coming back from injury, so like Adam's team has a high ceiling for sure, is my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, his team, yeah, I completely agree with the depth issue. So if he has a couple of players go down, that's just monstrous. But like, I think CH and Swift are both gonna like get a lot better this year. And like his wide receiver 1 and 2 are both like, in my opinion, there's like 4 or 5 receivers that have like a realistic justification of being the wide receiver 1, and he has 2 of them, which I don't believe anyone else in the league can say. So that's the major thing there. I agree he has tons of risk. I just think through and through his starting lineup is awesome with no holes other than tight end and a really high ceiling.
Cody, what do you think? You've been pretty quiet over there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. We'll have to see. I think the running backs are still the issue. Even though I think they could get better, I think looking at where they are right now, I don't think it's enough to compete with Trujillo or you. I think he can still get them wins. The lack of bench depth scares me. OBJ does scare me, even though I know it's not a starter. But I don't know. He has not been good, OBJ. But we'll see.
So like for the record, I agree I will end with more points than him, but so like his running backs, CEH and Swift, compared to Trujillo's of Nick Chubb and Chris Carson, do you think like that's really that big of a gap? Because to me, I had that almost identical for those 2 versus 2.
Nick Chubb and Chris Carson. Is that Trujillo's? Because he got rid of Eckler.
RB1 and RB2.
And Akers went down. So before those 2 moves, I would have agreed.
I think because he has Monty, I take those above. Like Monty isn't nothing on the bench.
Right.
No, I agree. I like Monty, but
I don't know. I think Chubb is better than both of those guys to me. Like to me, when you're drawing tiers, I think Chubb is a tier above those 2.
Yep.
And then I think Carson is maybe at the bottom of that tier that they're a part of, where they're more in that higher mid to high part of that tier. To me, so I think there is enough of a difference. But again, we'll see. And Kittle's a huge difference, for a tight end. I also just think if you faced, here's what I think. Adam could possibly finish as the number one team. I guess with my power rankings, I'm also just thinking of like where everybody's going to end up. And that still means you or Trujillo will probably have a bye in the first round because not just the number one, it's also number two. And I would much rather take either one of your teams in the playoffs. So I would take you still number one. I would still take Trujillo number two, just because I think Adam divisionally will be very good. But it'll be close. It will be close. I think it's a lot closer than I thought originally.
Sure. And to clarify my point, because I don't want to misspeak, but I do not mean that. I still think I'm the number one seed. I'm saying I think Adam has a really good chance to finish the regular season as the number one seed based on his division. But like,
Sure.
if we're talking points or like your team's ability to score alone, I have him and Trujillo about identical, and Adam has a good chance to finish as the number one seed in the regular season because I think he'll win a bunch of games.
Got it.
Yep.
So
No,
you
I
think
think-
you think from a points perspective, Trujillo and Adam will be about the same.
Very close. Yeah. I might lean Trujillo slightly, but I think he also has the best division, which is why I put him below Adam.
So that's where because I've even told Adam I think Adam's team's potentially better than mine, if not certainly. So then that's where I agree. Like points wise, I think, but I should say like points wise, I would say Adam is third, but I think he almost assuredly gets second seed
Sure.
for the reason that you're outlining, which is actually I like that meta take as far as like his division and the fact that he plays them 6 games. Again, I just returned to, which is interesting. I didn't even realize Adam has Antonio Brown, so there's kind of a nice diversity spread with Godwin and him. But I just returned to the lack of depth being my biggest argument for my concern with Adam, and the fact that I agree that he has the highest ceiling, but I think he also has the chance of being like the 4th seed or 5th seed instead of just being the 2nd seed. So that's why I don't put him at 2, because his floor is super low, as I think Trujillo and my floors are higher than Adam's.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Yep.
Okay.
It's just interesting to look even right here, just kind of on Adam. It's like, yeah, starters, I think he has the 3rd best starters in the league for sure. But the bench is 8th, and that's what drags him down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I think I've made my point clear in the past that I'm all about starters. I prefer to have 1, maybe 2 off the bench, which he clearly doesn't have. But to me, starters are weighed like 90% in my power rankings because your bench points don't matter.
It's interesting. I used to think that way. With all the injuries that have recently happened and how much it affects teams, I don't believe that anymore. I think bench is super important, way more important than it was in fantasy football, personally. But I get that.
I'm somewhere in the middle and saying that I've always thought it's as important as it's always been. Like, I think it's just as important as a factor. And I think that, Sam, even though you say that you believe in all starters, you have always also had depth. So I think that it doesn't really line up.
I see what you're saying, but I have my goal is always to have depth of about 1, maybe 2 at each position. Like, I don't have true depth. Like, if you or Trujillo have like 2 to 3 players go down, you can replace them with solid players. But like, for example, last year I started Corey Davis in the championship. Like, no championship team should be starting Corey Davis, which to me that showed that I didn't have that good of depth when my starters were good enough that they could carry me.
So it's funny you say that, because that's actually where I draw the line. Having 1 or 2 of each position is depth, and Adam doesn't have that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Then I guess I didn't really consider that depth, but yes, I think like 1 of each position is really important for bye weeks, and like someone's always going to go down, but
Right.
It's just about if you can replace them.
I love the conversation 100% regardless. So I'd like to return to the Trujillo discussion, because I would like to stake my claim and say he is the number 2 seed assuredly. So we know where Sam stands. Like, what am I speaking today? We know where Sam stands. Cody, do you agree with me?
I'm trying to do like schedule math in my head right now. I feel like where I'm trying to go through. I think when you actually think that especially looking at it here, where you have Marcus and Mags is 4 and 5, and then me at 8. I think he just gets what do you guys think is pretty reasonable? Maybe 4 and 2. I think he'll go 4 and 2 in division. Whereas I think Adam almost assuredly goes 6 and 0. I actually don't think he loses in his division. Just based off like especially Jake, Ben Fowler, and Mike Reed literally being the bottom 3 teams. If you're looking at this, so there's already a 2-game gap there. So then, from your non-divisional standpoint, Trujillo has to make up 2 games, which 3 of those or 4 of those involve Adams' division. So essentially there's like a 3-game difference there. I think I don't know. I don't think it's assuredly. I'm really 50-50 split on it at this point.
So again, it's based off of division. I tend to like putting power rankings more points based than like division, and I like it to be like a separate conversation to say like what your divisional competition is.
Sure.
So that's where I personally put Trujillo there because I think he's the second best team, and the reason I mainly said that too is that is what ultimately decides your like whether your team is better or not than another team. That's ultimately what decides your value in the playoffs.
Oh
right?
yeah. If we're talking just points only, I would put $1 on Trio for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't bet against that. I would probably agree with you guys.
Okay. So I think we agree then. Ultimately, really, it just depends on how you weight it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, all right. So using Adam again as the litmus test, is he better or worse than my team?
I guess real quick, does Drew have any weaknesses in your guys' opinion, or is he just kind of straight up good across the board? Oh man, look at that.
I think he's pretty good across the board.
Yeah.
I thought that before too, though. I mean, you can maybe I see the concern with the second RB, but I think just the diversity between Montgomery and Carson to me is I would trust that enough.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, the wide receivers look amazing to me. Tight end's amazing. Flex is good. Second QB is good between Stafford and Tannehill. I think he's just got everything covered to me
And
right
he's
now.
got fantastic depth at wide receiver position.
Yeah.
To your point, with the Montgomery and Carson split, he's got enough depth at running back. And then again, you already mentioned like Stafford could honestly, he could turn out to be a top 5 QB, and he starts him ahead of Tannehill easily.
Yeah, he's a QB1 in my opinion. I'd probably start Stafford over Tannehill, honestly.
I think people are just concerned because we haven't seen it yet, but he like Stafford's needle could move so quickly.
Yeah.
I agree.
And there is still the thing that, again, Tannehill now has Julio Jones now instead of Corey Davis, which should be a little bit of an upgrade from his quarterback position. So it's like if you're throwing to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, it's a pretty safe wide receivers right there.
Yep.
That team's going to be fun to watch this year.
Yep.
He's even got Gesicki at tight end behind Kittle. So it's just like, this is why the more I talk about it, I just want to put Trujillo at 2 because I just love his roster construction, and I get the whole argument behind Adam, but can't do it.
That's fair. Yeah, he's got a great team.
All right. Want to cover your team, Tom?
Yeah, I do like where we put Adam. Like it's so interesting because my team is just like Trujillo light, basically. Like every position you could, it's obviously not, but pretty much every position is just slightly worse than Trujillo's, which is just so funny. But it's like similar depth, and then I have a big question. I guess I don't say Roethlisberger's really a question mark. He is a QB2. Like, so that's not even a question mark. It's just like it's like a slight weakness. So I guess I would almost say like Adam and I are pushed because I would take Adam's ceiling, but if anything happens to Adam in his main starters, I pretty much instantly vault over him.
Yeah, points wise specifically, I would agree that I would take Adam by like just a hair. But I also think like your team, if you made a list of like every player that could just like jump several tiers during the year, you have like half of those players. Like I'm a huge Hawkinson fan this year, huge Ayuk fan. I think Higgins is underrated with Jamar Chase going there, but I don't think Chase is going to overtake him. Ezekiel Elliott in redraft leagues, my fifth best player behind the big four running backs. Like, I think Lamar Jackson's going to bounce back. I don't know. Top to bottom, other than like RB2 and QB2, I think your team could all end up being super good.
Yeah.
I will say I agree 100% with you, Tom. I like your RB depth over him. I like your wide receiver depth over him. I like Adam's QB depth over you though.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's the biggest concern I have for your team right now is QB, is because you basically have Jackson and Roethlisberger, but after that it's like Cam Newton's not on a team. Um, I don't think Andy Dalton starts after like week 4, in my
hmm
opinion. Like I think Justin Fields comes in. So maybe that's the hot take, but either way, it's Andy Dalton at the end of the day. Um, so if there's one area that an injury could possibly like really derail you against Adam, it is at the QB position.
Completely agree, and that's why I say I'm Trujillo light. Almost
Yeah.
exactly, because that's what Trujillo doesn't have that issue. Like we have all the same depth except for at the QB position. I have to hope that Newton signs and Dalton stays quarterback and Davis Mills takes over Tyrod Taylor, or
Yep.
one of those things has to happen.
Yeah.
And that's
For
not
sure.
it's possible none of those things happen. So then I'm like actually fucked. So
Well,
Go to
just
Mike.
hope Lamar stays on the field, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you lose Big Ben, it's not a huge issue necessarily, but the Lamar Jackson is where your
Yeah.
team is either made or, is make or break, where at least Adam, don't get me wrong, if he lost Kyler Murray, that'd be a big hit. But then he just moves Dak Prescott up there and then he puts Derek Carr as his number 2. So it's not
It's
like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, it's like totally, it's not great, but it's a very, very good backup plan.
so we're opposites there, right? Because it's like if I lose a QB, I'm fucked. But if he loses running back, wide receiver, tight end, he's
Yeah.
fucked.
Right.
It's like
Right.
it's interesting.
It is. It's it stinks that whenever we're talking about this stuff, you really got to take injuries into account, but because sometimes that is the luck aspect of it, which makes it
Oh, for sure.
fun for
I
fantasy.
disagree. Yeah, I was gonna say that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Oh no, no, it makes it fun for sure. It makes it challenging, and that's the point.
hmm So I think I would settle at having. Hmm, God, it's
Mm,
hard not to say push because we just said it. Like we're opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to depth and floor or ceiling floor.
yeah.
So it's like I almost say that we're like what do you call that when you're like yin yang? I guess that's what I feel like me and Adam are. I would put us as push.
Points wise, I'd still take him, but I think it's pretty close.
Cody, what's your verdict?
I don't really know. I still think if we're just thinking what I know today without any of the injuries, I still take Adam's team.
Yeah.
For points. But like we said, it could change so fast though. It's minuscule to me, the difference.
Okay. So to finalize the discussion, we disagree vehemently with Fantasy Pros on Adam, no matter how you slice it. Like he's
Yep.
at minimum 2 ranks than lower than what we think. So I'm just gonna say based on all our votes that the top 4 is Sam, Trujillo, Adam, Tom, and that's tier 1 and 2.
Yep.
I would say that after those 4, it would be extremely unlikely that anyone else gets a bye. Like, to me, those are the 4 teams that have like a pretty good chance.
I agree.
Cool. Well, then let's talk about the 2 other teams that we think should make the playoffs, which are Marcus and Mags. I don't know, like we talked about before the podcast Marcus's value. Like, kudos to him because I think we all agreed looking at his team, like, whoa, he's actually got a team and it's not bad at all. Like, good job. Um, I guess, how do we even start this? Like, do we say that, like, do we try to compare him and Mags? Because I think that is probably the most interesting. Who is the 5th seed? Who is the 6th seed, basically?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good
Yeah.
place to go to from there. I mean, so like looking just quickly giving Marcus kind of the rundown here from what I can see. It looks like QB situations, top is really good. I don't buy fully into the Jalen Hurts train yet, so I think there is some question marks with his second QB, but he has enough diversity within his team that I think it'll get solved and figured out. So that doesn't generally give me a huge concern. I do have a lot of questions about the wide receivers here. I think they're good, but there's a lot of risk with them. Adam Thielen obviously is aging. Tyler Lockett is the biggest boomer bust player in arguably in the NFL today. I think if you look back on his score lines last year, pretty much all of his scoring came in 3 games.
Yep.
That he scored like I mean I can look
I'll
at it
click
right
on it.
here.
Yeah.
41,
Yeah, 41,
58, and
58,
33.
and
Yeah.
33. So it's like he is
Yep.
the biggest. He's the definition of boomer bust. And so like yeah, he's gonna win you 3 weeks, but he might like kind of lose you, not lose you, but like not be great the other weeks. And then Deontay Johnson is a guy that I think volume wise he'll be just fine. There still does seem like there's a lot of mouths to feed, and he still did lead the league in drops last year. So that is always a little bit of a concern, but I think he's gonna have the volume so where it won't matter.
I love that you pointed out the receivers because there's so much to unpack. Just to comment quickly, like echo each of your comments. I agree with Thielen. And he's been injured pretty considerably the last couple years. So, and I know you guys say when I say this, I've never really loved him. And then Lockett could argue like good things for him because they did nothing to address their weapons really. So like he's still like clearly the number 2 weapon after Metcalf, and you could even argue they're like both. They just do such different things on the offense. But then yeah, Deontay Johnson is the most interesting one to me because man, does he have a low floor potential? With Claypool and Smith-Schuster and Najee Harris now becoming like he's a great pass catcher, and they drafted Pat Fryermuth to add to an already like tight end receiving focused guy and Eric Ebron. Like, I don't know. I think Johnson has a chance to just like fall off the radar completely more than any other guy that's like projected as high as he is. Is that a hot take or?
I think it's a hot take. It's funny. I actually was thinking the exact opposite of your point. Is that I think he has one of the highest floors in the league for receiver. I mean, I don't have the stats up right now, but I believe he led the league in targets per game last year. So like, I don't think that's going to change by enough that he won't be at least a solid contributor. Does he have the ceiling of being like a top 5 receiver? I don't think so, but I think he'll at least put up 10 to 15 most weeks in PPR.
I think out of everybody on that offense, I think Claypool is the biggest risk to me. He is a downfield target that I think hopefully they can still expand upon that. But I think they're clearly designating themselves though to be a run first team. With the addition of Pat Fryermuth, of really good blocking tight end. I know last year especially even coming out of that last playoff game and last season, they're like, we passed the ball way too much. Like we need to get back to running the football. That's why they drafted Harris. They're going to do that. They're going to, utilize him, and somebody's going to have to take a hit on the passing attack. So I think it's going to result, honestly, in all 3 of them coming down. I just think Claypool, who already didn't have the most targets, has the biggest risk to come down from that perspective.
It's just tough to forget what he did last year.
I think Claypool's awesome too. I think Juju takes the hit personally, but
I do
could be
think
wrong.
Juju's the worst, but it's just hard. It's funny because I could see both sides of the argument, but I just like think that someone has to be the one to fall. Like I don't think Roethlisberger is Tom Brady where he can support all that weapons. Like
I agree.
And that's where. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, that was kind of my point.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Sam, with Juju taking the hit. I think Juju just continues to stay where he's been at, which has been like okay, but not very good, in my opinion. That's where I think I still have Claypool over Juju, but I don't think the gap's as big as it was from last year. I think it actually becomes a little bit more close. Just like I think Claypool's talented, I just think he is a deep threat target, which is basically what he is. And if the offense is going to move away from passing, those are generally the things that start getting cut more than anything
Yes.
else.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Claypool is a big boom bust. I don't know. I just think he's too talented not to give him the ball.
For sure.
Which
That's
is why that's so now that they have, I guess that goes back to my original point. I just think that like at the end of the year, we're going to be talking about something.
Yep.
Like either it's going to be Ebron is not a fantasy asset at all, which I guess you could already make that argument, but or it's going to be like, oh man, it's crazy what happened to Claypool, or it's crazy what happened to Johnson, or we're going to say it's crazy that Najee Harris wasn't a part of the pass game as much as we thought he was.
Mhm.
So like that's pretty much where my entire argument stands. So
And I think that's a fair argument. And actually did look it up, and Johnson was 6th last year in total targets, and he missed 3.5 games. And given I do think that they're going to throw a lot less this year, but I just can't see him not getting like 110 to 120 targets and being like at least okay.
Yeah. To your point there, Sam, I kind of tend to agree with you for sure. He's those short targets too. Like those are just hard to really ever get rid of. They never seem to escape an offense. I think those are just reliable targets to just give. They let him opportunities. The only way I see him fail is continuing to drop balls. And if there ever is an emergence of James Washington, he is good. He's just so buried behind that depth chart, but he is a good wide receiver, which is so funny. They're just
Good
so
point.
stacked at that position.
I forgot about him, but that's a great point. I just don't, man, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think that he has a simultaneously high floor, but also like, what if the mouths just don't work out? We never thought Juju Smith-Schuster wouldn't work out. So
That's
like,
true.
that's
Yeah, and I guess to your point, maybe and kind of what Cody said is he gets all out of the short passes. If they send half of those to Najee Harris, maybe he does lose half the target share he had last year, which I can't think of an example like that previously, but like it could happen. So who knows?
I think I kind of compare it a little bit, and this is different for sure, is kind of the emergence of CMC when he was in comparison to Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel is that guy that's like a 5 yard receiving type person, like catches the ball within 5 yards and then is after the play type stuff. Now, did his targets take a hit from before? No, because I think he was emerging, but it was more like it just put a cap on him more than anything else from what I saw personally. Get it?
that's a great
It's a little bit
comparison.
of a difference in offensive style, but it's the only example I can think of.
Oh,
Off
I
the
think it's a
top
great
of my head.
example. Yeah.
So question on his team before we move on. So he has Gibson, Eckler, obviously solid 1 and 2, and then he traded for Akers, who obviously isn't going to play this year. What are the odds that when we look at this next year, he has the number 1 running backs in the league? And he has Jacobs on the bench too. Should point that out as well. And Chase Edmonds. Jeez.
I think it's 30%. I still put you at a high percentage of 60, in my opinion.
Okay, so he's the clear number 2 then, in your opinion? If he's 30 and I'm 60.
I gotta be honest, without actually having reviewed every single team, I guess I don't know. I'm by the talent I'm looking at right here, I do put him really high, I would say.
Yeah. But it is interesting. Akers is a tough prospect to own because if Henderson is great this year, like good luck trying to get Akers back into a situation where he's like as high as he's valued. Like it's just tricky.
Akers was also, in my opinion, coming off an extreme high where he really didn't find his footing until like the middle or end of the season, and then playoffs he was really good too, and he was just coming off that high for sure. Which is always interesting because we've seen like Sony Michel do that before, where he just came off that extreme late season high and then just kind of dropped off. Not that I think Cam Akers will, but
Well, it's interesting because it makes my brain go to a different place where I used to have Dobbins and Akers and Dynasty very similarly valued, and then they both got injured, and I would personally much rather have Dobbins now, because I think that Gus Edwards, even if he has a great season, like what does that really mean? Like Dobbins when he returns is going to be RB1 pretty much assuredly. Whereas I don't feel the same way about Akers.
See, I'm actually not worried about Henderson at all. I'm more worried about the injury for Akers, but like to me, Henderson had his shot, didn't do anything. They drafted Akers and Akers crushed it. And then even when Akers went down, they specifically went out to get another running back to complement Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, but every team
I
goes
don't
out to go get running backs. Like
I mean,
right now, even the Ravens are looking to complement someone.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I don't think Henderson's going to do too much, but that's just me. I mean, like, I don't think Gus Edwards will either, but I just don't think either of them are really a risk to those top running backs.
I guess to me, when I think about it, I don't put Cam Akers as a RB number 1. I think he's a high RB number 2. Is where I would place him personally, but that's just personal beliefs with the amount of stuff that carries over with him. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm not as worried about Henderson either. I kind of agree with Sam. I think he kind of had a shot. If he goes off though, it isn't like Gus. It isn't like if Gus Edwards goes off. There is a difference. Daryl Henderson is still young enough to where they could think about it. It could make them think, especially if they're successful.
Yeah, I guess maybe I just think Akerson and Henderson value in Dynasty as of today are so similar.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that, but but I do think that it is closer than I would have assumed it to be.
We need a dollar bet on this.
On what?
Yeah,
How?
who's gonna finish better this year?
Over the next 2 years, who is the better? I don't know. Yeah. I anyway. No, I was
we
just
could
joking
do
because we haven't
we
had
could
any
always
dollar
do
bets.
by the end of the dollar bet could be. I mean, well, we could just do it internally and just try to remember this, but without actually doing it and writing it down because that could be annoying. But like whoever is the starter after the second year.
Right. Right.
So
Or
like
who finishes with
whoever
more
is the
points in
starter.
2022, basically.
Yeah. But again, I don't want to do a dollar bet because I don't want to wait that long.
No, I know. We just haven't done any today, and it just crossed my mind.
Yeah, I want to do a dollar bet on if Cam Akers will be the starting running back in the next 10 years.
Let's look at Mag's team. I think we have a good idea of Marcus's team now, which he's vaulted quite a bit in the last 2 years. We need to make our decision, so we need to dive into his team now. Well, it's safe to say that his team wouldn't be where it is without the ETN injury, arguably.
Yes, that was huge.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I know it was an off-season move with everyone mixing up their tight ends, but him getting Waller is massive, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Honestly, that is the reason, basically, I would take his team over Marcus's. I think the rest of the teams are comparable. I just think Waller is that much better.
Wow, I would not. In my opinion, I think there's a huge difference between Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert. Number
Okay.
one. Number
Well,
two.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, number two. I think the wide receivers to me, while to me number one wide receiver on his team is Justin Jefferson. I think he's over Mike Evans by this point. I think Mike Evans, from what I've been seeing, is like a huge bust potential.
That's not a question. Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes down into the kind of the area there of where they're at. And it's like, do I take Deontay Johnson over DJ Chark? Yeah, I still think Deontay Johnson's better than DJ Chark.
Do you think Deontay Johnson's better than Jamar Chase?
I don't, dude. I'm
he also
worried
has
about Jamar Chase too. I don't think Jamar Chase is the number one on his team right now. I think it's clearly T. Higgins.
I agree. He's not the number one on his team, but I also think the Bengals are going to be a lot better than the Steelers offensive-wise.
Me too.
Really? I don't think they'll be that. I actually don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Is that a dollar bet?
A lot of targets on who will be the better offense.
Yes.
Who will
score more
passing
points?
offense?
Okay.
Passing? No.
I'm fine taking either.
I'll take overall offense. I will take Steelers for sure. Joe Burrow coming off an injury, having only played a handful of games.
I don't think it matters. In his handful of games last year, he didn't even look like he was a rookie, and I think even in preseason, like he looks completely fine.
Yeah, but
in training
I
camp.
think it was the sheer volume that the Steelers constantly have. We'll see. I think Najee Harris adds a huge dimension to that offense, and I think they've done. To me, what the difference is offensive line. The Steelers actually have one. The Bengals don't.
They did a little bit in the draft to address it. Didn't they? Wasn't their first round after Chase? Didn't they take a lineman?
Maybe. I don't remember, but I mean, I don't think after that it's kind of anyone's guess. After
Yeah.
you kind of get past the first round, but it's like they clearly, in my opinion, should have taken Sewell. To me, over Jamar Chase.
I think that's yeah. I
agree
actually
with that.
agree with that because they would have been fine with just Higgins and Boyd.
Yep.
Because people
And
still underrate Boyd. He's a solid receiver.
I agree.
We'll see.
Cody, I know you were kind of going top to bottom, and you said Herbert's a lot better than Cousins, which I would agree with, but I do think Cousins is underrated. But I wouldn't say that Herbert is that much better than Burrow, who I would say is Matt's true number one QB.
Oh, I would for this year.
Yeah, why is he starting Winston over Burrow? I don't understand that.
He might just not have him in yet. I don't know. He might have just not changed it.
Asshole.
Maybe he just doesn't want to root against the Vikings.
I don't know. I think there's a difference.
Dude, like Winston being projected 19 points is absurd to me. I don't get it. I think that
he looked good. He looked good in the preseason. Given it's preseason, but
I just think that yeah, maybe I'm crazy, but I think that Hill's gonna take over a lot of fantasy value. I think they're gonna put in Hill, because Hill was up until recently, he was their guy that they're paying to be the number one quarterback. So I think it's gonna Hill's gonna be their goal. I think when they get to the red zone, they might even just put in Hill. Maybe that's crazy.
I'll make a dollar bet that Winston scores more points this year than Hill.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
That's.
Oh.
I would bet on that.
Oh, you're just arguing the amount of points he's gonna get here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, where
Burrow, I guess my argument is Burrow is going to score more than Winston almost assuredly. I would put 80-20, maybe even 90-10 on that. But that, I don't know, maybe that stifled the conversation. The point is, I guess looking at this now, I would take Skoniewski over Meg's team.
I would too, personally.
I don't know. I think the running backs, I would take Skoniewski, QBs by a little bit, but I just think the receivers and the tight end on Matt's team are just too much to overtake him.
I think the wide receivers are pretty comparable. They're not that far off to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're extremely far off. But I mean,
just because of Justin Jefferson or what?
I mean, sure. So who is Skoniewski's number one against? And Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen is debatably not even. Yeah, I don't even know if Adam Thielen's a wide receiver 2 this year. He just scored 16 touchdowns or something insane last year. So he's going to take a huge hit. Mike Evans has never not finished with 1,000 yards, so I'm not going to bet on him to bust this year. When you've done it for 7 or 8 years or whatever, to me, that's just not a good bet, and I'll take that bet if you want it, Cody. DJ Chark, I agree I'm not a huge fan of, but I think one between him and Chase will end up being just as good, if not better, than Skoniewski's wide receiver 3.
That's just go back to Skoniewski. I don't remember looking at his bench for wide receivers too.
He's got Ruggs and
Rieger, Mooney. They're all fine bench players, but
Bateman,
I think they have high potential too. I like all of those guys. I love Rieger and Mooney personally.
Yeah. I just think that I don't know. That's interesting. It's funny because you look at Fantasy Pros rankings of them. They put Marcus at 7. They put Mags at 6 for wide receivers. So they literally put them right next to each other.
Which makes sense, yeah. But
I don't know why this came up.
I don't know. I just think Matt's wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 are better than any wide receiver Skoniewski has on his team.
I think Jefferson's due for some regression.
I agree. But I still think he's better than any wide receiver on that team. Even with regression.
I agree with that.
I mean, what was he, wide receiver 3 or something last year? Something insane.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Wide receiver 6. And I don't think Skoniewski has even one wide receiver that really has a decent shot at being a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think he's got guys that can be it. Will they be it? Probably not. Like, I mean, Tyler Lockett, I think, was technically a wide receiver because
Yeah,
of his boomer bust
statistically.
potential.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think he'll actually be it again. But he has
So
potential to be it.
sure, but like I would, if you want, I'll take Evans over. If you pick one of any of Skonias's receivers, I'll take that bet. Whether it's Lockett or Thielen or Johnson or anyone, if you want to pick Rieger or Mooney, I'll take that too. But and I assume you would never take Justin Jefferson versus any of them because I think that's pretty clear. But I think Evans is one of the most consistent receivers of the last like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at things about him because you can see where he had really good games, and then there were the arguments about like where he didn't have like where there's games where he only had 2 targets here, or you think about the Super Bowl where he only had like 2 or 3 targets as well,
And I'll return
because
to
of
what
the
I said
weapons.
earlier. Antonio Brown, man, he's legit. Like,
I like it. Yeah, I like Antonio Brown. I drafted him in a couple of redraft leagues this year. I think he'll be good.
and
I'm
does
just
Tom
not betting
Brady do
against
better
Evans.
than he did last year? Like,
Probably equivalent, I would say.
just equivalent, and then like Antonio Brown was not a factor last year until halfway through the season, if even later. So like I think it's very real that like AB is number one in fantasy. Okay, sorry. If that happens, I think AB is
Whoa!
number one in fantasy on
Yeah,
that team, and then
I,
Godwin Evans.
I'll,
I'm
I
still
mean,
think it's more
I'll
likely
take
that
that
it could.
bet, but
No,
yeah, like
that's.
I don't think he will.
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think I'll
It's a
leave.
very low possibility.
I'm not strong enough to bet on Lockett over Evans because I have my own issues with Lockett too. Um, so I think I'll probably have to leave that one alone for now.
Sure. So then, by saying that, you're agreeing that Matt has two receivers better than any receiver on Marcus's team.
Yep. Well, I'm agreeing that. Yep. So I'm saying Evans is better than Thielen. That one's so
Evans
tough.
is
They're
better than
like
Thielen?
even.
I don't
They're
agree.
like even.
I'm just
Take
down
take
on
take
Evans this year.
take the bet then. I mean, like I'll bet
What's the bet? Thielen? I would bet
you can
Thielen
choose.
Wait,
is better than
it's
Evans.
the field. Essentially, it's any of Mark. So it's okay. Never mind. I'll take it. Yeah,
You get
for
to
sure.
choose you get to choose one of Marcus's receivers,
Oh,
not all six. You get to choose one because I'm saying I would bet one versus one that Evans is the best receiver. Like Evans is better than any of his one versus one. Obviously, if you're getting six receivers versus Evans, I would take the field.
Yeah.
oh,
So I would bet that. Okay. No, I see what you're saying. So I have to
yeah,
pick one.
You have to pick one.
yeah.
So whether it's Thielen or Johnson or Lockett are the big three.
Damn
And
it.
that's where I
And
don't want to do it because I think, I think as a consensus, when I think of like who will be above them, I think you'll have 2 of them, above him, above Evans. I would do that bet. If I was given the 6 guys and I had to bet that 2 of them would be above Evans, I would do that bet.
okay, deal. That seems
Okay.
way better for me.
I mean, it essentially just gives me a field rather than having to do one person.
Yeah, but in my opinion, three of the people in that field don't even matter. Like, aren't like Mooney and Rieger are like I don't know. Nothing. Okay, that's fun.
I
Yeah, but it's also Deontay Johnson. I mean, it's literally saying pretty much out of the starters. So I think like what? I think Thielen's about on par with Evans. So
Okay,
I think he has a chance to beat him.
for
And then
that bet
Lockett technically did beat him.
because you get the field, there needs to be an injury clause on Evans, but not the field because I'm not canceling the bet if one of 8 receivers gets injured. Do you agree to that, or are we canceling this bet?
No, he
Now
agrees. So I feel the same way about me and Adam, but for different reasons that I think that these are pushed. I can't decide. I keep flipping between both teams. Like,
I think that's fair. I just prefer the tight end upside because I think it's like 10 points per game based on one position difference.
yeah. Man. Yeah, but I'd rather have Edmonds over Mostert and Chase. Like,
I
I'd rather
actually
have.
I actually think Mostert is better than Edmonds this year. I'll take that bet too if you want it.
You saying Mostert over Edmonds?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd take the dollar on that for
Okay.
sure.
I don't know. I still think we're not making a big enough deal about the gap between Herbert and I mean I just think I still think there's a huge gap between Burrow and Herbert to me.
That's fair. I would take Herbert, but I don't think I think they're the same tier. In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not a huge gap. I love Burrow this year, man. If you can't tell.
Yeah, his weapons are so insane, and I get his offensive line isn't that good, but like, just between Higgins and Chase and Boyd and Mixon, it's a lot.
They have Herbert like 5 spots over Burrow in different tiers on Fantasy Pro, just as a example.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I just don't think it's that big of a gap in my rankings.
God. Okay. Can somebody explain this to me? Just because I think this relates to their team. Back to Marcus. Jalen Hurts is number 11 quarterback.
'Cause he runs.
Being drafted right now.
He runs, yeah.
Yeah,
He runs. He's supposed to have as many. Well, some people project as similar output to what Murray had last year.
Also, 11 isn't like that crazy. I mean, I assume that's pretty in line with like Burrow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's above Stafford, it's above Burrow, it's above the rest makes sense to me why he could be on there. Above Matt Ryan, above Trevor Lawrence, above Kirk Cousins,
Yep.
like those make sense to me.
I would agree with all those, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just super down on Hurts. I just don't. Maybe if this was Dynasty, I'd actually be a little bit more worried.
It's just he showed that he could play quarterback last year, and that's enough to say like he's the bona fide starter and he runs. That's where it comes from.
Dude, Minshew mania. It's gonna be taking over. You
Oh
watch.
my God.
I'll be waiting.
Okay. I
Wanna
guess
keep
my
going?
final vote. I don't even want to pick, but I would pick Skonieski over Megs, but it's push. After week 1, I think that we might have a better idea. That's how push it is.
Yeah,
And Cody, you taking Skonieski too?
I would too.
All right, I'll be the single vote for Matt then. All right,
But
so
yeah, it is super close.
theoretical question for you guys. So I think we all agree that this is our top 6, and this is a pretty big teardrop after. So this is kind of the 6 we expect to make playoffs. How many, if you had to put the over/under, where would you put it on how many of these teams actually end up making playoffs this year? Like 4 of them, 4.5. So like 5 would be a
5.
win, 4 would be a loss.
To me, it's 5.
You think 5?
5
I
is
think
the
5.
easy bet, but because saying 6 is like outlandish. But I would say it's more likely to be 6 than 5.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Like I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you
I'm just
disagree,
trying to
Cody?
I think it's gonna be. I think 5. I think the only reason I think it will be 5 and not 6 is because I think record-wise, because Marcus and Mags and Trujillo are all in the same division, and we have the top record makes it. I think, Tom, you will be. Am I thinking about this right? So Sam's gonna win your division. How do we decide the next 3 wild cards?
So
I think I'm forgetting now.
I can't remember if our number 2 seed is points or the second best record. I don't remember what we changed that to. But let's say I know the 3 division winners make it, and then there's at least 1 based on points. There might have been, I think there's actually 2 based on points. So I think it's 3 division winners. Next best record is the 4 seed, and then points after that for 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So theoretically, everyone from one division could make it if it worked out that way.
Like each division has a clear winner. So
Yep.
to me, it's Sam, Adam, and Trujillo are shoe-ins. Pretty much,
Yep.
Trujillo is the closest one because he has some tough competition with Marcus and Matt. But
Yeah.
and that's man.
And then
So
I
guess
think,
maybe it
and
is
then I think the
5
next
because-
are points. The
Mhm.
points are solidified to me. Who would take those spots? It's all about the record to me. Is the only place where I could see like I actually think if anybody did it, it'd be an Adams division for record. Playing
Right.
these really like shitty teams to me, and then just like getting lucky and having a good enough record to just slip by, say somebody like Marcus or Megs, who they just have a super tough division, and then
But- I mean, the thing is, though, is that those teams would have to be relatively close anyway, because like we're only talking about a 3-game difference, right? Out of a 13-game season, you only have 3 games that are weighted because everyone plays everyone once, and then you play 3 teams twice. So like, Basically, we'd have to say that someone in their division who we have as the bottom three is within like a 2 or 3 game limit of anyone in the top 6, which I probably wouldn't bet on.
I don't know how I think about that because I could see using Mags as an example, and not like abiding by this for sure, but I could see that being 2 losses to Trujillo within his division, which you can counteract that to being 2 losses to Adam in Division 3. I think that's fair.
Okay.
I think you could make the argument. I guess maybe it depends on how much lower you think I am, whether you think I could take a game from one of those guys or not.
You could take a game from Matt and Marcus for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd be interested to see how Jake and Ben, they're really low right now, but if one of them started hitting on something, then the other one is just like, you have Mike Reed, who is an automatic buy. That is an automatic free 2 wins.
Yeah.
And then, like, if Jake O'Brien somehow was, like, the 7th best team, I think Ben Fowler then is 2 free automatic wins.
Okay. So like let's think. So who do you think right now is the best team in that last division other than Adam?
Probably Jake O'Brien, in my
Okay.
opinion.
And earlier you said Adam should probably go 6-0, right, in division.
Yep.
Okay,
sure.
so they're 0-2 right there. Let's say they even go 4-0 in the other games, which would be pretty crazy but doable. So they're 4-2 against the other 8 teams. What do you think like O'Brien's record would be against the other 8 teams? I assume
1-7,
Lost.
2-6.
Yeah, like lost to me. All these 4 teams we've talked about before. Me.
I think he could be 3-3.
Okay, so is he gonna lose? Is he gonna lose to me?
Yeah.
Is he gonna lose to Tom?
Yep.
Trujillo.
Oh, I guess it can't be 3-3. Never mind.
Yeah,
I'm
no
sorry.
way, yeah.
I wasn't doing my math. There's 8 teams. Probably the loss would come to you and Tom,
Yeah.
Matt,
What about
Marcus, Trujillo, all
Okay.
3, and then beat me, beat Laramie, beat Eric.
I
Okay,
don't
so
think
is
that
that is that 3 wins for them?
Yeah.
Out of
So
division?
3 and
Okay,
5.
So that would put them at 7-7 on the year, which I
Yeah.
don't think would be enough to win the
Right.
4th seed.
If-
My point. Is I don't think
if you had Marcus, or say you had Mags though, go 0-4 against Trujillo and Marcus, and I'm just using Mags as the example. This could be Marcus too.
Sure.
Then you said like there's the potential I could beat Mags a game, right? 4-0.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I
like
mean, that's-
he could
that's
be
fair
1-5 in our division.
Yeah, but then Marcus
potentially.
wouldn't. Marcus wouldn't though.
Right, but I'm saying Marcus would already get in on points. That's where it already comes down to record.
No, that's not how it goes. It's
It goes
division.
record first?
Its record is the 4 seed right now. Is the way we have it set up.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So that's
Points
where-
are 5-6.
It's like, to me,
Got
there's an
it.
outside chance that one of them sneaks in, but that's why I'm saying that it's like 60-40 that all 6 of the teams we're talking about are in the playoffs.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we're getting to him soon, but I actually think Laramie is by far the biggest chance to get in that's not in that top 6.
Yeah, his team's not bad. His team
No.
is, yeah,
No,
I agree. But he's got obviously you and I to compete with, right?
Exactly, and that's why I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a pretty easy to make that tier after 6, but I just think that at least 1 or 2 teams might sneak in there depending on how the season goes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Cody and Laramie in conjunction then again, I guess.
Mhm.
I'd say Barber too. I think he kind of falls in that range.
I don't think so
briefly.
personally,
I don't
No?
think so.
Okay.
He doesn't have a second running back, like legitimately. He has Sony Michelle. That's not a running back. Compared to you guys, where you guys actually have a full roster and
Sure.
then like maybe some weaknesses.
Sure.
Okay, Laramie's team is not that bad. Like,
No.
okay, Fantasy Pros rated his running backs as 6th. I think that's ludicrous. With Mixon, Sanders, Harris, like
Yeah, that's great.
those are really, really solid starters. I don't know if he has anyone on his bench or not, but like I think that's pretty good personally.
Bernard,
His weakness is
Mack.
at quarterback. That's his,
Yeah.
because he's got
Yeah.
Ryan and Goff and
No backups.
Yep.
no
Quarterback.
backups. So he's got a similar situation to me, but the fact that he doesn't even have, like, I don't know, there's an outside chance that just Goff straight up sucks, and then I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how to feel about Ryan. to be
I think he'll
honest.
still be fine, but he's not great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll have to see. I don't love Sanders, but it's good enough for being it's good for being a second running back though.
But it's
And
his third.
yeah,
Yes,
with
'cause,
Najee
like,
Harris,
yeah,
right?
Najee
Najee's probably the
exactly.
one in my opinion, but
Yeah, that's so true. His running backs are so good, and then I like his top end wide receivers now with Cup, Claypool, and then
Mhm.
Robbie Anderson's good too for a third
Still
for
like him.
sure.
He's got no one after that. Arguably, like
No,
the
he
biggest.
doesn't. He's a bench issue to me, even though it
Yeah,
doesn't say that here. I
he
think
does
he
have the
is.
Sun God who we liked before. I guess he does have Tyrell Williams and Sterling Shepard.
Terrence Marshall too. It's okay. It's not terrible.
His tight
The
end
tight end.
situation is fucking fantastic.
yeah, it's super good.
Yeah. Oh gosh, he has good backups here too with Chuba Hubbard and Gainwell and Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just think
it's actually a better bench than I thought.
like if we're talking about him sneaking into playoffs, like his team is actually like if I look at this, I would say yeah, it's probably a low end playoff team without knowing the rest of the
Yep.
league. Like no major glaring holes other than wide receiver 3. I'm not a huge Robbie Anderson fan, but like top to bottom, it's pretty decent for the most part.
Yeah, he
I
gets in
agree.
the playoffs by beating me out essentially, and that's could happen.
I think he'd have a better chance against like Matt and Marcus personally, but I mean, maybe you.
Yeah.
But I just think like he's probably going to make it based on points. I don't think he'll make it based on
Oh,
record.
I see. I was thinking it based on record because the reason I was saying that was that he just beats me twice, and he has that advantage over being able to play me twice. But
Yeah, I think if anyone in our division is going to make it based on record, it's going to be. I mean, like I should win the division, but like you might beat me in the division. But if you don't, I think you have a pretty good chance of making the 4 seed for record.
Yeah,
Because
it's just like it's interesting. Sorry to interrupt. It's interesting looking at his team and then comparing it to Mac Magnuson's team to me. Because again, I think minus quarterback, he is off on quarterbacks. That's the only thing to me. I like every other thing comparing to Mags's team except for quarterback.
What are you talking about? His wide receivers are worse and his tight ends are worse. It's just running backs that are better than Magnuson's team.
The wide receivers are not that much worse. For sure, they're not
I
that.
completely disagree.
yeah, I
Oh
disagree.
my god.
Okay,
No way.
Justin Jefferson, I would say is very, very easily the number 1 wide receiver on this team. Is that a discussion?
No, not to me.
Really? You guys are that low on Cup?
Okay, I'll take a dollar bet.
No, I'm not saying I wouldn't take Justin Jefferson over him, but like saying it's not even a debate makes it seem like it's not even like in even a realm of conversation to you.
Well,
I
let me
think
put it
that's
this
a little
way.
ridiculous.
No. Let me put it this way. We've already had a lot of debates, and of like how close things really are. Like we just had a debate about Mags and Marcus's receivers. Obviously like it's a debate, but it's not even like comparable to the debate we just had. So then
Sure.
that's what I guess where I'm coming from.
Sure. I guess, yeah, in my rankings, I have Magnuson's receivers all way above these receivers, but
When are you gonna publish them?
my rankings,
Yeah.
again,
We're waiting.
Jefferson number 1, Evans number 2, just to justify it.
Yeah. I actually tend to agree because, like I said, I think it's Jefferson over Cup, Evans over Robbie Anderson or Claypool. Doesn't matter.
Sure. Yeah, maybe they are better. But I
DJ
don't want
Chark
to
and
admit it.
Chase
I
over
want Laramie to
Anderson.
make it. I want him to feel like he has a chance.
I mean, the point is, honestly, he has a chance. Yeah, I mean, his team is like competing.
Yeah. And his running backs are way better than Matt's to me. Like, that's not close either. I just think like wide receivers are not close at all. But yeah, and QBs too, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, QBs
And
aren't.
Waller over Andrews, and and then obviously Harris over the flex, I guess, is the only interesting thing. Like, is his flex better than Mags? Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's.
Well, let's just
yeah.
I guess I don't want to entertain that debate because I would rather entertain the debate about him between your team because
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we know his team. I was looking at your team on the side while we were chatting because it's funny that your team is like the most interesting, which makes sense because you just drafted. So like, of course, like you could just have like a huge breakout team, and you could end up being like way higher than Laramie's team. It's
Yeah.
like everyone just hits, right?
My team is literally just the epitome of besides running backs, which I think with Dobbins going down now, just like my running backs really when I had Dobbins weren't bad. Between Barkley, Dobbins, and Harris as a bench player, they're actually pretty good. My wide receivers are literally just all depth. There's
Mhm.
nobody that's like is gonna like wow you as of right now. And then the hope is by the end of the season, 3 of them wow you, and then like the rest is all depth because I just have so much depth with my wide receivers. And then same thing with QB is like QB is just all depth right now.
Right. I wouldn't bet on all of your rookies panning out because that would be
Nope.
historical, especially like they could pan out long term, but the odds of them all having crazy good years now is obviously you agree is great. Is like outlandish. So that's where I would probably take Laramie's team over yours.
Oh, for sure. I think the thing is I don't need. I agree this year for sure. I think if I had Dobbins, it would have been a lot closer, and I
Mhm.
might have been able to overtake him. Just because I think the sheer number of wide receivers I have that are considered like prospects that can be high, to ask like 2 of them to hit would actually not be that rare to me. I mean, I think Judy's going to take a huge step forward. I've been hearing nothing but good things about him. And
Mhm.
then it's like between Pittman, second year, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and then it goes down to
With Paris
Elijah.
Campbell and Pittman too.
Yeah, Paris Campbell and Pittman. So hoping one of them hits. Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, also the Moore guys, and then some other just second year wide receivers that I don't actually think they'll amount to much, but still. Oh, and then Kadarius Toney as well. There's just
And
a lot of hope.
right, like how good is Pitts as a rookie? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
I don't
funny.
think Pitts will be that good. This is what I was saying before. This year isn't my year. I'm totally
No,
fine trying to compete. I'm not gonna try to rebuild at all. It's not about that. It's just waiting
no,
for the
that's
most part.
yeah. Looking at your team again more is that like this is your year to evaluate, and then
Yep.
you apply the delta next year in what you were missing this year. But I also wouldn't sleep on Harris. Or sorry,
Yeah.
I mean actually I hate Harris. What do you want for him?
Yeah.
Smart.
Sorry.
I was a
That's
little
how
bit
I
happy to
trade
see
you.
Sony go away. I was like,
Yeah, that's a
oh,
big
okay.
boost.
Yeah, so I mean they're looking like they're gonna be pretty committed to him. I mean, I think they'll still have their stupid rotation, like Stevenson will come in and whoever else. But it's like
James
they don't
White.
have James White for sure. But at least they don't have Rex Burkhead anymore. Just
Yeah.
like randomly would have a great game every 5 games, and people were just like, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But we'll see.
After the Sony trade, I've come around him a lot more because I know Cody and I have a previous bet of I bet him Harris wouldn't be an RB3 or better, and I regret that after the Sony trade. I still don't think he'll be an RB2. Like I do think he's like a legitimate first off the bench option for a team
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Yep. Yeah, I liked him a lot when Dobbins was there, and he was coming off the bench. I was very happy with him as a
Mm-hmm.
backup. But
Right.
yeah, throwing him in there as my RB2, I'm not ecstatic about it. I'm so. I'm like, okay. I have him as like a high RB3, low RB2.
Right. So yeah, I guess wrapping up my opinion is that I would take Laramie's team over yours, whereas we've had a lot of other debates, but of course you could finish above him.
Yep.
Just it would take a lot of history to
Yep.
Yes.
overcome.
Like I said, Dynasty, I'll take my team. The redraft, I will not take my
Yep.
team compared to his
Yep.
this year.
Yep.
So if we're making 2 bets, I'll take his right now and yours a year from now.
Yep, for sure.
So we agree with Fantasy Pros.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk about the last 4 teams here. Is Barber clearly the best one? Like I just looked at Brian's team because I already kind of know Barbers, and I just like don't like it at all. No offense to OB, but like it makes
I
me
think
gag a little bit.
O'Brien's is pretty close to Barber's, I think. So I don't think Barber's is good either.
Okay, and then I have to look at Barbers because I'm looking at O'Brien's team. I'm just
Okay.
like puking in my mouth a little bit. Like, oh god.
The thing is, who's O'Brien's starting wide receivers?
McLaurin, Landry, and AJ Green.
Oh,
until Fuller comes back.
Yeah, but
Right.
that top of Devontae Adams and CeeDee Lamb, and then Tyler Boyd as his third, that's pretty good.
It's good running back or receivers, but then it's the running back issue. Like
Yeah,
I
the
love
running
Hunt
backs are.
because I love Hunt and Chubb, but
And his QBs are worse than O'Brien's.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. There's
Tom
the Jimmy
Brady,
G.
Garoppolo, Daniel Jones.
Oh, Danny Dimes!
There's a chance that like he only has one starting quarterback. I don't.
Right.
I mean, Daniel Jones would probably start the year, but
it's the depth concern again though because Obi has Rodgers and Mayfield, and then legit nothing unless Hill takes over.
yeah, but like to me, if like let's say Baker goes down, even I would take Rodgers as a QB core over Barber's 2 QBs.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would rather have Rodgers and some miscellaneous non-quarterback player in my super flex than his 2 QBs.
The running back
guess-
situation for Barber's interesting for next year, not for this year, because like he has ETN, and then Sam he has like your guy if he starts Trey Sermon and Stevenson, so he's got some options down there, like maybe for next year, but
Yeah,
Devonta
I
not-
guess
yeah, we'll see.
I don't like Obi's team, but it does have a better starting construction. So I guess I would put Obi above him and disagree with this ranking of Fantasy Pros.
They're close though. Neither team is great. I mean, like
Right.
out of these bottom four teams, what are the odds that even one of them makes playoffs? 10% maybe. Like if that, it's getting pretty dire. It's like a full rebuild for all of them.
Right. So then what
That's
about
so
Fowler?
weird to me that. Sorry, before we move on, this is so weird to me that Fantasy Pros, when you look at starters, has Barber over O'Brien.
I agree.
That doesn't feel right to me. I think it's because they're literally putting so much value on the wide receivers.
Yep.
Because again, they don't base it off of they base it on strictly rankings. So they don't consider what the difference between the rankings means in points, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but I agree with you guys. I would take Obi's team over the alternative. But anyways,
Yeah.
I can go on to Ben Fowler's team.
Yeah, I just wanted to because I think that you and Laramie are in their own tier. I don't think any of these bottom 4 teams jump into a different tier. So to me, it's Barber, O'Brien, and Fowler are the next tier because Mike is obviously.
They're all low ceiling, low floor.
Yep,
in my opinion.
right.
Like they could all end at Mike will end at last, I guess. But
Maybe I'm wrong. Fowler's team clearly feels like the worst out of the 3 to me.
yes,
personally.
he has a very good chance not to have a starting QB at some point this year.
Yeah.
Like not even one. Like it's
Not to
dire.
mention that he doesn't have a legitimately good flex. I guess he just got Edwards, so now he has
just
a
got
flex.
Edwards, which is a bold play. He's really going for the try and compete every year, but I don't get it.
Wouldn't you have
What
thought
if
that
he's got
Galladay
Barkley?
for like a not good quarterback would have been like the way to go? Like a number 30 through number 20 QB for Galladay would have been the way to go on his team, or what do you guys think?
Yep. I think that would have been pretty smart.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that Kenyon Drake trade just looks so bad in hindsight.
Yep.
Like if he had done Galladay for like I don't even know who I'm trying to look at for his team. If he'd done Galladay for like Carson Wentz, I think that would have been pretty fair.
I think that would have made more sense.
Yeah. Looking at Fowler's team, I think it's ludicrous that they're ranking him the same as Obi's.
Yeah.
I mean, his team, you got to trade Aaron Jones, right? Maybe build around DK if you want to, but like.
Yeah, but he doesn't agree because he just traded to win now.
I know.
Unless he's hoping there's a surge on Gus Edwards and he can flip him again, which is I mean, I remember Mike talking about how he wanted to trade Gus Edwards for a lot in the midseason when teams were trying to compete, which I totally understood. And like, I mean, like, there's teams that if Gus Edwards was like an RB number 1 this year, like say he's like a low RB number 1, I think there's teams that would have paid a second round for him just to have an rental RB number 1.
Well, I agree because we just kind of talked about like if it's between me and Adam and I need to beat out Adam, that's enough for me. And then it's the same with Marcus and Matt.
But like, yes, if we're saying like you could hopefully get a second rounder, to me Galladay is worth more than a second rounder.
Oh,
So like,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I'm
like,
saying this
sure,
is what
maybe
Mike
you could-
Reed's strategy
Oh
was.
yeah,
before
yeah. It would have
when he
been
had him.
good to sell him like in the season, but like, I don't think if Fowler ever wanted to sell him, he'll never get his value back that he gave up.
Right.
No, I don't think he will. He can hope that he does, but
Yeah, I guess
we'll see.
maybe Edwards comes out as like a top 5 running back on that team, but
Yeah, and then all of a sudden
I
he's
just can't
able to
see
sell him for like a first.
I just
Yeah.
don't see it. We already know Edwards' ceiling because he has been their starter before.
Yeah,
like
but it all comes down. Yeah, I agree, 100%.
he
I've
will
been hearing-
not. I will dollar bet that he will not finish as an RB1 this year.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
in
you
the
don't
same
need to
boat.
convince me of that.
Okay. Because
I
especially because he has no PPR value.
I agree.
Does it count if like Lamar and him hold onto the ball at the same time and then just run it together? Can that be shared running?
Hand him yard.
That's how he gets. That's how he gets his
Right.
points.
It's like experience share in those old Pokemon games.
Exactly. Your Gus Edwards has evolved into the Bus Edwards.
Into Jerome Harrison.
But other than that, man, I don't know. His team's pretty. It's still better, right? We still have to conclude that it's better than Mike Reed's, though, right? It's still like it's not that bad.
For this year, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for this year. Looking at Mike Reed's team now.
I mean, any team
tough.
that has DK
That's
and
tough.
Aaron Jones way better than Mike Reed's team.
12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12,
Yep.
12, 12.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
That's about right. So, okay. Do we want to just talk about Reed for the sake of talking about Reed's team? Like, I guess we'll say this: we know he's last. What's his best case scenario for this year? That he just gets the first pick?
What? No, I mean, okay, honest to God, his best case scenario is he comes in second, because it's highly likely that he won't even have the first pick, because
that's right.
assuming that Jameis Winston doesn't finish the top 10 QB, it goes to Matt. So like, he wants to not finish in last. He wants to finish in second to last. But he's probably going to finish in last. So he'll have like 9 picks in the first round and not 101 would be my guess.
Wait, so back when that God, I hated that contingency. I hate contingency trades like that. But the contingency was if Jameis Winston isn't a top 10 QB, that Matt gets a first from Mike
Yes.
Reed.
Yeah, because otherwise, if it would have been unlikely that Matt got the first, then it would have been a super uneven trade, because it was like Winston and Deontay Johnson for
Watson, right?
Yeah, Watson, which would have been just like really stupid without the first. So it's basically implied that Matt gets the first.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's the possibility.
There is.
Winston's been a top 10 before, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, he has. There's certainly a chance, but we
I'm
didn't even know he was
surprised there
going to
was
start.
like a different side of value where it's like if this happens or if Deshaun Watson is a nothing quarterback, which he probably will be this year.
Probably this year, but I think at this point I would bet he'll play again.
Yeah, we'll see him
At
in the
some
longest yard part 2.
So then looking at Reed's team, he is I guess he's hoping for huge progress from Darnold so that he solidifies him like as one of his 2 QBs for the future, because he'll get his second and third in the draft.
And he has Deshaun Watson still.
Right. True. So he's hoping that one of his biggest hopes is just like not football related at all, and he's just gonna be watching like court cases.
Yeah.
I think, sorry to move around so much. Yeah, I do think it's like Darnold or like say Jordan Love comes in this season somehow and is successful, or Dwayne Haskins takes over for Big Ben and is successful. I think he's just hoping a quarterback besides Deshaun Watson just proves to be even a guy you can roster.
Haskins.
Yeah, like even a guy that's like you're like, okay, I can have him as my number 3 QB, and I feel good about that right now. I think that is even super valuable for his team.
Right. Hopes that Herndon is so good that they don't want Irv Smith to even be part. That's not going to happen, so that's not even worth mentioning. Like, yeah, Haskins, Love,
tight ends,
Watson. Actually, it's funny because I guess his hope if I had to summarize from just word vomiting right now, is that he doesn't have to draft quarterback next year. Like his hope is that Haskins somehow comes out and is just beastly if Roethlisberger gets injured and Watson becomes a quarterback, and then he can address the rest of his positional holes.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'd say.
Because he doesn't have anything in running back, wide receiver, or tight end to hope for at all.
God,
So
10 first-round picks. That's nuts.
that's yeah. We could be talking about his team being. Oh, it'd be interesting to see if like his team has a better rebuild than what you did. I'm not saying that it will happen.
It's going to be the ultimate case study of is it worth having all of, like, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of my chips all in one year as well. But
Mhm.
like I already at least had some pieces beforehand, not great ones, but some that I like still didn't sell off. So it'll be it'll be a great case study. It's going to be fantastic.
Not to mention that he put all his chips in like next year even more because he has like nothing in the 2023 draft.
Yeah.
Every
And
time I
next
try to
year's not
trade with
supposed to
him,
be
I'm
that good of
looking
a
at
draft.
2023, and then I'm like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. It should be interesting.
hmm All in all, league health wise, this is the most healthy I've seen our league to start a season, which I'm a fan of. Maybe not the first year, I guess. The
Yeah, I
first
was gonna say the first year is always pretty even, but
year.
Yeah.
But I like the
Even
health
the second
compared
year
to
was
last
pretty
year.
even too. Honestly, like this league has been pretty. I'd say minus, honestly, in my opinion, last year with Sam, the league has been relatively even, where I didn't know who was going to win first necessarily.
hmm I like this year more than last year is what I'll say.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree.
More teams are part of it. Sam's team is a little like barely, but a little bit worse and more risky. And then like I think it's cool that there's like a clear top 6 because it means that there are 6 like playoff teams. So that's good. And there's 2 teams that could come in. So like yeah, I'm happy.
yeah, and if we're talking about odds of me as the favorite winning the championship this year too, it's going to be really different having a 4-team championship. So that'll be really fun to see.
I'm so excited for that.
Oh,
By the
me
way,
too.
yeah, that's
I think that'll be
right.
awesome.
it's
Yeah,
just
for
been
sure.
so much more to watch. Like so, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just like the factors.
What
It's
do you
never
put your
it's
chances are, Sam? Like, I think I have you at about 60 to 65% right now of winning the title. Is that reasonable or too low? Or too high?
so I'm just trying to think of our settings. So if you get a bye, you get a bye right to the championship then, right? Is that how we were doing that?
Yes. Yep. 'Cause
Or is there a week before that? Yeah.
no, you get a bye because it's a roto for the first week,
Okay.
week 16, and then week 17 is where the roto starts for everyone. Like it's a 2-week roto, right? 17 and 18.
The championship is week 17.
Oh,
16,
you're right. I'm
17.
sorry.
16,
Yeah,
17 is the
16,
championship.
17.
So yeah, assuming, yeah, I would say probably like 50-50 right now. Because I think I still do have the best team, and I think I'm a heavy favorite for at least a bye. And then me versus 3 other teams, I think that are probably the best teams in the league too. I would give myself like 50-50 in a 2-week playoff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I love that dynamic that you're no longer trying to beat one other team, and
Yep.
that you can't just bank on hoping the other team is bad anymore. It's
Yep.
kind of cool that now you just have to hope your team is the best.
if one team pops off for like a 240-point week, it's like, okay, everyone's trying to catch up to them, including myself.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it'll be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll literally be like a horse race. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we were gonna do hot takes, but we've had plenty, I think, just in this conversation.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe in week 1 we can do our
Sure.
additional do some more further hot takes.
Agreed.
Sure. So, on that note, any other thoughts for our 2-hour preseason podcast?
No, looking forward to Thursday. It'll be fun.
Cool. Me too. Cody?
I'm ready for football. I'm ready for it. Feels like fall's finally here. I'm so excited. I was optimistic about the Vikings, and I feel like a lot of my optimism has gone away right now. I don't know why, because, well, that's the Vikings. But I'm super excited to watch it and still have a little bit of hope for now.
Cheers. Well, on that note, thanks for listening to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. We will see you after week 1.
The Football Podcast with Cody and Sam.